8 influencers, 8 different approaches. Who built the best crypto portfolio? Each one starts with 10K, evenly split between their picks or allocated as described in their video. Performance is tracked from the video's release date. Let's dive in. Jung, one of the biggest crypto YouTubers out there with over 2 million subscribers. We're looking at his video titled Top 5 Cryptos to Invest In, released in October 2023. As the title suggests, it's a very simple portfolio, just 5 picks: Bitcoin, ETH, XRP, ADA, and Atom. No meme coins, no microcaps, just high conviction, large cap plays. In the first few months, it built up some momentum, but then it started bleeding against BTC, only recovering a bit during the November rally. After that, it faded again post-Trump's inauguration, and right now, it's underwater in BTC terms. The USD chart looks a lot better. The portfolio never dropped below the starting point. It took time and patience, but eventually climbed to over a 3x. Right now, it's hovering around a 2x. Honestly, not bad at all, especially considering how rough the last few months have been across the board. Safe plays. No wild swings, but no home runs either. My main concern here would be whether anyone holding these coins would actually stick with them, since it took quite a while for the main performer, XRP, to wake up and go on its run. Same goes for the second best alt, Cardano. In the end, though, results are what matter, and that's what we're tracking in this video. Final numbers. The portfolio peaked at plus 231% in USD. Current value is plus 92% in USD and minus 21% in BTC. Next up, No BS Crypto. One of the up-and-coming channels, and actually one that was requested in my comments, so here it is. And as always, feel free to drop your favorite influencers below. I'll keep covering them. His video, titled Escape the Matrix, dropped in December 2023. He mentioned that he wasn't fully allocated yet, but for the sake of simplicity and objectivity, we're going off the 10 coins he already listed. The picks were HBAR, Mina, Quant, Near, XLM, Algorand, Casper, XDC, Multiverse X, and ICP. The investments in each coin aren't equal here, and the differences are actually pretty big. The largest allocations went to HBAR, Mina, and Quant. The portfolio is clearly focused on L1 infrastructure plays. The strategy seems to lean on the idea that L1s did well last cycle, so maybe a safe and obvious choice on paper. But so far, it hasn't really played out. Only 2 positions, HBAR and XLM, performed similarly to Bitcoin. The rest underperformed by a big margin. Now, looking at the chart, the portfolio had a solid moment in November 2024. It rallied hard from the lows to peak around 4.5x. But since then, it's been grinding down, and right now it's close to break-even in USD terms. The Bitcoin chart tells a slightly different story. While the USD performance was struggling, Bitcoin kept pushing higher, so the portfolio's BTC valuation kept dropping until a short-lived comeback in November. After that, it went right back to losing ground against BTC. So overall, the L1 thesis hasn't really delivered this cycle, with a few exceptions like Solana. But spotting those winners was tough, mostly because of how many new L1s popped up. There was simply too much competition. For now, this strategy is underperforming. Final numbers. The portfolio peaked at plus 172% in USD. Current value is plus 9% in USD and minus 43% in BTC. Now we've got Crypto Banter, focusing on Rand's portfolio, the face of the channel and one of the most well-known voices in the space. His picks were shown directly on screen, so there's no guesswork here. The portfolio is a spread of 10 assets: Solana, Caspa, Kujira, Injective, Link, Ton, Rune, AR, GRT, and Tau. You can immediately see Rand's style of building portfolios, quite different from the previous ones we've seen. He leans heavily into the most trendy narratives. In this case, it's Solana, the Cosmos ecosystem, and AI. As for performance, it's been a roller coaster. Solana is by far the top performer, up over 100%. Tau and Ton are also in the green, but just modestly around 20 to 40%. Everything else is down, and some by a lot. Kuji's down over 90%, Rune and Injective lost more than half, and GRT, AR, and Link are also deep in the red. So despite a few strong individual calls, most of the portfolio has been dragging. Looking at the Bitcoin chart, it started out fine and actually peaked in March 2024, a decent run early on. But that didn't last. From that high point, it's been grinding lower for over a year. There were a few bounces along the way, but nothing that held. The USD chart is a little easier to stomach, but still far from ideal. The portfolio kicked off with a run in early 2024, hitting a peak of 27K in February. After that, it started to lose steam, with sharp corrections followed by some decent recoveries through the middle of the year. It actually rallied again in October and came close to retesting the highs. But since then, it's been in a steady bleed. As of now, the value's around 8K, slightly below the starting point and miles away from the top. So overall, the handful of winners couldn't make up for the broader underperformance, and over time it slipped behind both Bitcoin and even stable holdings in USD. A few calls aged well, but the portfolio as a whole is underwater. Final numbers. The portfolio peaked at plus 173% in USD. Current value is minus 17% in USD and minus 62% in BTC. Now we've got Alex Becker, one of the biggest names in the YouTube crypto space with over 1.5 million subscribers and hundreds of thousands of views per video. We're looking at a portfolio he laid out on November 11, 2023. He mentioned a total of 21 coins. Some of them are Beam, Super, Veracity, Seedify, Ape. A full-on gaming bet with a couple of infrastructure plays like AVAX mixed in, but otherwise all in on GameFi. Performance-wise, it had a solid start. The portfolio peaked in March 2024 at around a 3x in USD, a strong move early on. But the momentum didn't last. It made a slightly lower high in December, and then things broke down going into 2025. In BTC terms, the story is different. It had a great run from November to mid-December, almost doubling against Bitcoin, which is huge. But after that, it started sliding and never came back strong. The decline was steady, and it's now well underwater. So overall, this was a high-risk, high-reward setup that caught the gaming wave when it was hot, but couldn't hold on once the narrative cooled. Some solid picks in the mix, but too many of the tokens just couldn't keep up. The strategy made sense at the time, but gaming ended up going from one of the best performers to one of the worst. Right now, it's well underwater, down 46% in USD and 77% in BTC. In USD, it peaked at plus 232%. Next up is House of Crypto, a growing channel in the space with a solid following and consistent coverage of the market. The portfolio went live on December 14, 2023. 8 coins were mentioned: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Chainlink, Render, Seedify, Gala, and BitTensor. It's a mixed bag combining blue-chip cryptos with a few slightly more speculative plays. Definitely a safer setup compared to some of the other influencer picks, especially since most of the money went into BTC and ETH. Betting on Ethereum, as we know, didn't pan out too well, but Bitcoin certainly did. In terms of performance, every single position underperformed Bitcoin, and everything except BTC and Sol is currently in the red. Looking at the USD chart, it's exactly what you'd expect from a so-called safe portfolio. During the strong months for the market, it managed to climb as high as a 2x, even making a higher high in December 2024. But once the market turned, it broke down alongside everything else and is now hovering close to break-even. Riskier portfolios may have captured bigger gains at the top, but they've also taken much heavier hits since then. This one held up a bit better on the way down. So overall, this was a relatively cautious strategy built around low-risk alts. The issue is, without a strong alt season, it's unlikely to outperform Bitcoin. It does limit the downside, but if that's your goal, you might have been better off just holding BTC in the first place. Final numbers. The portfolio peaked at plus 100% in USD. Current value is minus 1% in USD and minus 43% in BTC. Now we've got Bitboy Crypto, one of the biggest names during the 2021 cycle. A lot of drama since then, but this video's all about portfolio performance, so we'll keep the focus there. His video dropped on December 1, 2023, and it featured a 5-coin portfolio: Render, Theta, Pyth, Conflux, and Radix. Not exactly the most mainstream picks aside from Render, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Performance-wise, it's actually pretty interesting. The USD chart shows a strong move early on. The portfolio did over a 2.5x during the rally into March 2024. After that, it made a much lower high in December and has since been cut in half. But the Bitcoin chart is where it gets more telling. The portfolio managed to outperform BTC in that January-March window, but from there, it completely collapsed and is now down over 75% against Bitcoin. So overall, this was a high-risk, high-reward play that just didn't work out. The idea was clearly to catch breakout narratives early. It did show strength at first, but it couldn't hold on, and now the chart doesn't look pretty. Final numbers. The portfolio peaked at plus 169% in USD. Current value is minus 53% in USD and minus 77% in BTC. Next up, VirtualBacon, a data-driven creator with a clean, analytical style. He backs his picks with research, historical trends, and narrative logic, and that approach has worked well for his YouTube career. His channel's grown steadily, and his portfolio videos pull in a solid number of views. In December 2023, he released an updated portfolio made up of 25 positions. It's a broad spread covering almost every major narrative he believed in, but despite the diversification, very few positions actually delivered. As of today, only 2 coins managed to significantly outperform Bitcoin, and even then, both of them had just a 1% allocation each. Everything else underperformed. The portfolio had an okay start, up 70% into March. It then hit its peak in early December 2024 with a 92% gain in USD terms, making a higher high, but pulled back since. Right now, it's hovering around the break-even point. The Bitcoin chart looks disappointing, a steady decline through 2024. But even though it mostly just went down, the decline was slow, so it only lost about half its BTC value. Compared to someone like Becker, the strategy here is night and day. Becker went all in on a specific narrative, gaming. VirtualBacon tried to cover all relevant narratives. From AI to Layer 2s, Cosmos to dog coins, if it had a narrative, he had exposure. The idea was to stay diversified and capture whichever sector took off. But the problem is most of them didn't. Narratives like gaming had their moment, and Becker's focused portfolio actually outperformed Bitcoin by almost 2x at one point. But in Bacon's case, that exposure was spread thin, and the gains from winners couldn't offset the drag from the rest. On the other hand, this approach limits downside compared to Becker's, whose portfolio is down over 40%. Riskier strategies can outperform when the timing's right, but once the market turns, they lose ground fast. Bacon's is pretty much break-even, just slightly in the red. But so far, it's also capped the upside. It would have been a lot better to just hold Bitcoin. If we get a true alt season later this year, we can compare further. Final numbers. The portfolio peaked at plus 92% in USD. Current value is minus 2% in USD and minus 45% in BTC. Last but not least, Coin Bureau. One of the biggest channels in the crypto space, known for its high-production, TV-style content. Whether you like that style or not is a matter of taste, but it's clearly worked. The channel has built massive trust and reach over the years. We're looking at a portfolio shared in November 2023 on their second, more casual channel. There were 2 people in the video, each mentioning 3 coins, but for this breakdown, we're treating it as one combined portfolio. Arbitrum, Solana, Metas, Injective, Rocket Pool, and Decentralized Social. 2 L2s and a liquid staking play made up half the portfolio, so it was effectively a big Ethereum beta. And despite how ETH has performed lately, the portfolio actually had a decent start. In USD terms, it peaked in early 2024 at over 3x from the starting point. Then it broke down like many others and never made it back. It tried to bounce a few times in late 2024 and early 2025, but those rallies didn't last. As of now, it's sitting at around 2/3 of its starting value. Not great, but having Solana in there helped soften the blow. The Bitcoin chart shows a sharper contrast. The portfolio outperformed early on, more than doubling against BTC and peaking in January. But after that, it dropped hard and never recovered. It's now down over 85% from the top in BTC terms. So overall, this was a thematic altcoin portfolio, mainly Ethereum beta with some trending plays mixed in. It caught a good wave early, especially in BTC terms, but gave all of it back over time. The only thing that could really revive this setup is a major ETH-led alt season. Final numbers. The portfolio peaked at plus 230% in USD. Current value is minus 44% in USD and minus 68% in BTC. So, looking at the whole picture now, All the portfolios were, at some point, up 2 to 3x in USD. A few of them even managed to 2x against Bitcoin. But as of today, every single one is losing to BTC, and most of them are losing badly. The end of 2023 was actually one of the better times to enter the crypto market, so imagine how much worse those numbers would look if someone entered at a less ideal time. USD numbers aren't looking great except for Brian's. Being 2x up after everything that's happened recently is actually pretty solid. Worth noting, his video came out a bit earlier, and from October to mid-December 2023, his portfolio was already up around 50%. Even if you measured from that point, it would still be the best performer. Turns out, the most obvious picks, the blue chips, outperformed during the bad times and performed similarly to the best risk-on portfolios when things were good. Does it have to be this way every time? Not necessarily. You can check out my previous portfolio video where things played out very differently. Thank you for watching.